You got to know when to hold 'em.
Hey Siri,
Hmm?
tell me about the Great Game.
The Great Game was a political and diplomatic confrontation that existed for most of the 19th century between the British Empire and the Russian Empire over Afghanistan and neighboring territories in Central and South Asia. Do you want me to keep reading?
No, tell me about the Omaha Native Americans.
The Omaha are people of the Great Plains Native American cultural group. The geography of the region in which they lived dictated the lifestyle and culture of the Omaha tribe.
Now tell me about the history of Omaha poker.
Omaha poker history began in Nevada in 1982. It was brought by Given, an Eastern woman from Seattle also known as Lady Dragon, and Alabaman Robert Turner, a well-known star of poker tournaments. In the card halls of the Golden Nugget Casino, the game instantly advanced in popularity.
Lastly, could you tell me more about the Jewel in the Crown and the Great Game?
Russia adding the jewel in the crown India to the vast empire that Russia was building in Asia. This resulted in an atmosphere of distrust and the constant threat of war between the two empires. British made it a high priority to protect all the approaches to India, and the Great Game is primarily how the British did this.
The action-packed Great Gambler's Game of Pot Limit Omaha. I limp along, then call a pot-sized raise from the button with a somewhat speculative hand, mostly due to being in the second best position. Flop is nothing special. I plan on check folding, but we see a free turn card that keeps us intrigued. Up and down straight flush draw, one way to the nuts. Can't forget about our pocket eights and dangler pair of threes. After the first three players check, I have a hand good enough to call a button bet, but with having zero fold equity check raising all in, and not the playability to check call, I go for the semi-bluff pot bet myself. I'm the player that could most credibly represent a good hand, since I previously checked to the pre-flop raiser, and the other players are unlikely to do that twice on a very dynamic draw-heavy board. The button is the only caller. He is representing draws while I'm representing made hands, so a good spot to be. The river brings in my nut straight, the very best card in the deck. Time to give JD some rope. Snap call, and we take down a nice one. A double-suited ace in early position, not very connected at all, but not much raising going on behind, and we have a hand that plays well multi-way, drawing to the nut flush. Want to keep the pot as small as possible for the time, though. Don't want to bloat it out of position, which doesn't happen. Great spot, 8 ways, looking for some hearts. I call, and the more the merrier. The turn brings in a pretty disguised low gut shot in an 8 for a jack-high straight, and still the 3 for the dummy wheel. I check, hoping to see a free card. Not much fold equity in these games, especially with this many players. Wick makes a pot-sized bet, and again, the more the merrier. Almost just back to me. Pot-sized bets are easy to calculate, so getting 2 to 1. If all my outs are clean, makes it a call, and could maybe look to bluff with some straightening rivers since Wick looks like he has a set. TT, the flop better, also makes the call, and now I'm getting 3 to 1. With implied odds on him, maybe also having a flush draw, an even better call. That is why it is so important in these crazy games to be drawing to the nuts. Switch the ace to just one notch lower a king. Easy fold, so why even play that hand? We do hit the dummy 3 for the nut low, but in this game, just the wheel. The main straight draw on the flop in 7-6 gets there, hoping TT doesn't bet as I would fold, but after a check, I go for a small bet of 300 to get value from a set that would for sure check back, but not call a big bet. Hand worked out perfectly. Top set, no good. Switching up the venues, going to Outlaws now, with a trashy pocket kings hand. I'm currently making a PLO starting hand rankings for these types of wild games, with my huge amount of downtime. And with so many players seeing the flop, hands that have polarized equity are much better than hands with smooth equity. This is a perfect example of a polar type of hand. Set mine looking for top set or fold. You flop a lot of equity or very little equity. A perfect smooth hand example would be 8-7-6-5 double suited. Flops decent on many flops, making it great heads up, especially in position. But when hands go so multi-way, can easily be dominated with higher flush draws, straight draws, and two pairs. Much better, and importantly also easier to play, when you hit a flop polarly, all or nothing, versus smoothly, a little of everything. Cowboy raises in early position, easy fold in an aggressive lineup with a lot of 3-betting, but here seems worth a set mine. We do hit our set, unfortunately the rare scenario of not top set. I go for a bet after the pre-flop raiser checks, the most likely person with aces. A, behind me, makes the raise 300. My mind actually changed 3 times during this next sequence of events. I suspected the action would fold to me, where I would call, keep ranges wider, to raise now, get it all in after a cold caller tiger, to fold after the original raiser goes all in. Win for every one of the options. Somebody looks to have the bullets. This time it's actually A, while Cowboy flop bottom set. Lucky hand for me, worked out perfectly again, able to get away. Tiger also mentioned he folded pocket kings. Wait a minute. That was a misdeal. This hand is very messy. Don't have a clear idea, to say the least, on what I was doing. On the button with my straddle to 10, at this casino, action starts under the gun and passes over the button if nobody raises. So I got to see everyone limp, then the big blind raised to 30, and everyone but the small blind to call. 8-1 on the button, with a new drunk player to PLO raising. Let's take this hideous girl dancing. Second nut straight is usually death multi-way. No redraw makes it even worse. Going to be very tough to navigate this situation. With not so much strong action, I go for the raise. The small blind cold calls, new drunkenly folds, and J calls. Total brick on the turn, and when checked to, seems very unlikely someone has 10-9. I bet, get heads up, beat a set of 7s with no redraw. You know you're running really good when you win with this hand. One last hand, going online this time, showcasing again the value of smooth versus polarized equity again. The beautiful 10-9-8-7, double suited all black, call, and play a flop 6-handed out of position. Not the hand to do it with, as it'll be incredibly hard to play. Time to pot it, and hopefully get this heads up with some added extra money in the middle. If he or someone else has aces, hey, we, on average, like an ace-king versus queen's coin flip. Heads up with $22 of dead money. Calling means he 100% doesn't have aces, so we can represent that hand. And we flop a flush. Now, think about trying to play this hand out of position against 6 opponents. Not nearly as fun. We pot, getting value against pocket kings and queens. The turn is an action killer, offsuit ace. We can now credibly have top set and the nut flush. Online is going great so far, up 6,555, all made in the great game, with some of my stats shown here. I'm very grateful for this poker option in this worrisome time. Positive thinking in poker as well as in life. Good luck to you all in April.